Al, great to be talking to you.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be talking to you too.
Well, I appreciate you carving out some time. And listen, this feels like a long time in the making in that I've been watching Budderfly throughout this year and anxious to speak with you. So I'm glad we're connecting now. So let's start with the big picture. What do you see as the big trends in building energy management and that market?
Well, Joe, I'm a big believer. I start with the macro dynamics of any market, and I founded this business model about 2017. Who knew that the world would be so focused, obviously, on reducing carbon? And I'm a big believer in aligning capitalism with a good goal for the world, and we've done that
Right.
with Budderfly fairly effectively. It's fairly obvious what the trends are. There's a huge effort to reduce carbon across the board. Obviously, EVs are going there. They have their challenges, the renewables craze, and then there's really building efficiency. Building efficiency tends to be the more boring of
Hmm.
those three, as you know. I happen to think the economics are the most effective there relative to the other energy transition legs of the stool. So huge effort right now, to a degree, for the world to reduce carbon, get more efficient. But there's a lot of friction in the machine, and I think it's
Yeah.
still running way slower than it honestly should. And at Budderfly, we created a model that reduced the friction for the benefit of getting to a better outcome a lot more efficiently and quicker. Again, for the benefit
Right.
of the planet as well.
Yep, yep. Now, I do want to talk about Butterfly a little more closely in terms of your strategy in a few minutes, but I want to continue painting that bigger picture first. So, the HVAC market, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Uh, when some people think of that, they think about vans running around to residential homes and apartments all day fixing air conditioners. When other people think about it, they think about, commercial buildings, massive complexes, et cetera, that need to be managed and have an opportunity to lower the carbon footprint. What are you focusing on at Butterfly? What market segment?
So we picked a unique market, and whether I had planned that when I founded the company, Joe, you know how things can go. We landed our first customer was Subway. You know who Subway
Okay.
is, and
Oh,
it got us
sure.
in. Yeah, it got us into what you could call the mid market. A lot of people think it's small. When you look at any
Hmm.
one restaurant, you'd ask yourself, "Hey, that's not that big." But when there's close to 20,000 McDonald's, over 20,000 Subways, you start to go through all the different brands. And they use, believe it or not, because we've made a science out of this now, and you have to make a science out of managing energy, that the average use within that industry is 5 to 10x the density of use as it is in a commercial office building. So an
Right.
office building like the one I'm in right now is probably about $3 a square foot in
Okay.
energy, electricity use, a little bit on gas. In the industry we serve, that sort of QSR, casual dining, retail market, you could be as much as $10 to $20 a square foot is very typical there. So the amount of carbon that gets created, ironically, by the food that keeps us alive,
Right.
amazingly, is a fairly inefficient market. To hit on one other thing to your question, I've been a bit astounded by how old the HVAC infrastructure is in all markets.
Right.
Really, just when you think about it, probably the 70s and the 80s was a big uptick in HVAC in the general comfort of society. Uh, and there really hasn't been a massive replace of all that old
Hmm.
hardware. And the efficiency difference is incredible. It's amazing how much you can
Right.
reduce usage with just making an investment in a new architecture. And it's been shocking to me that the world hasn't done that, both in our industry and in the generic office building industry, which is obviously quite large.
Gotcha. Yep. Good. Great background. So let's connect the dots a little bit about what you just shared with some of the recent economic trends. Rising interest rates, a lot of reports in mainstream media and real estate media about concerns about the commercial real estate market and the debt there that may need to be recapitalized. Are there any implications for this sort of building energy management market amid those rising interest rates? Any pressures there, or do you still see major opportunity ahead for both you and your partners and customers?
So let me attack that question twofold. Let me talk about the pressures that were there before rising interest rates, because there were pressures. The
Hmm.
market is very siloed in the way it attacks the problem. Let me give you an example. there needs to be a major investment made, first of all. And that investment is the hard part for everyone to get over. The capital expenditures. CFOs don't like CapEx. They especially don't like CapEx when nobody measures anything in the right place. And I can't really define the ROI. So they
Right.
mostly choose not to spend it to begin with. And there's usually a third-party financing firm required. So now you've got the energy efficiency firm, you've got the manufacturers of all the equipment, and you have a third-party financing firm. And then often you have an engineering firm to confirm everything. Now we got like 4 or 5 parties in the game.
Right.
Which is why it takes years, and then everyone comes to no decision, right? If you add to that rising interest rates, you've now taken that finance firm and like doubled or tripled the cost, which shrinks that ROI dramatically to a point where the answer is more no than yes at this point on an already elongated sales cycle. And again, as carbon continues to be a waste. So
Right.
that whole environment, I'm again astounded at how bad the environment is for the benefit of getting through anything. So at Budderfly, we created an all-in model. And what I mean by that is all we do is deliver the outcome. It's
Right.
simply, customer just says, yes, it's a short 2-3 page agreement. We write all the checks. We're a one-stop shop. We have a network of vendors throughout the country. We bear all the risk on the outcome, so the poor CFO doesn't have to sit here and depend on whether an ROI will happen or not. It's already baked in. And by doing
Right.
so, we took over the energy bill to make sure that we manage those economics for all parties. We had to get rid of too many moving parts because that's really what's slowing the world down right now.
Gotcha. Okay, so describe this to me more. The sort of this outcome based service. Now, I'm more from the IT market rather than the operational technology market. And what I mean by that is, I'm used to software subscription as a service, hardware subscription as a service, leasing options. It sounds like you've applied those types of economics to your solution so that the end customer is not writing a big lump sum to get started with a project with you. It sounds like it's more of a subscription based with immediate ROI for the end customer. Is that a way to think of it?
It is, and if you think about, I like analogies. I think
Hmm.
they're terrific. The solar industry years ago, before the PPA came out, had the same problem. You had to write a big check, and then the world wasn't as sophisticated on the production output of those solar panels. They're better now. That PPA essentially did the same thing. It
Right.
took the investment and it made a science out of, in that case, I think it's a bit long in the tooth on time, 20 years, 25 years, that someone just writes a rate per kilowatt hour. So we
Right.
almost did the same thing. And if you think about it, the investment in new high efficiency items, which is not small, has an ROI. And I can tell you right now that that ROI is well worth it in the long run. You just have to pick the term that will work over. So what we did is we got rid of all that complexity. We took on the role of picking the term. We actually manage the economics and we bear the risk on that return, and we share a good piece of that with the customer right up front. So they don't have to
Okay.
think about anything. And I call it outcome oriented because when you get pretty good at this, there is science. All anybody really cares about, if you think about it, is an outcome that has a much lower carbon footprint, a lower dollar figure to spend.
Right.
And we start out with that outcome defined. And the customer just
Okay.
says, okay, I understand. You're going to give me all this new stuff and you're going to pay for that. And this is the outcome that we're all going to get. And I even get to save money right now because over that 10-year period, you guys understand the economics. So we kind of got rid of, if you start with the end in mind, it actually becomes quite a simple decision if you're
Hmm.
willing to bear the risk of that outcome.
Okay. Okay. So let's take an example of myself. Let's say, for instance, I operate a chain of 100 uh, fast food restaurants, right? And I've got aging HVAC infrastructure. Are you coming in and replacing all that hardware, or are you applying software to the existing infrastructure to modernize it? I mean, what exactly is getting deployed as me being the customer?
A little bit of a yes and yes,
Okay.
but let me do my best in a simple way to describe it. That customer has 100 locations. I'm going to
Hmm.
put an average energy spend of about 50,000 a year. It's not
Right.
a It's probably a little, a larger QS, quick service restaurant as an example. So doing the quick math, they spend about 5 million a year, right?
Okay.
If you do quick math on that. And I will tell you right now, the average age of their HVAC infrastructure is probably between 11 and 15 years.
Okay.
Now that's average, Joe. Bell curves.
Yeah.
They might have a couple.
There's a lot of
ugliness
right. At that one end.
And I'm going to tell you why. Nobody buys new HVAC ahead of time. They only buy them when they die.
Right.
And then when they die, the one they need is tomorrow. And the one that the manufacturers make is the middle efficiency one.
Right.
That are sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So the whole system is designed to be mediocre. And that's what you're going to run into. So we will walk in, we take over the bill. We literally take the responsibility of the $5 million. We hand them a discount on that, just no questions asked. And then we will replace about 70% of those HVAC units with brand new, the highest efficiency made by humans today.
Okay.
And we order those ahead of time, like, with 30, 35-week lead times. We're buying ahead of our customers. We're spending the money ahead so that we have them. And they get a brand new infrastructure. We're getting about 50 to 60% energy reduction on those units. It's almost like an LED. Then I will tell you right now, LEDs, you would think it's a commodity and everybody's done it. The reality right now is the market still has about a 40% replaced to go in that industry.
Wow.
So usually we're replacing about half the LEDs. Good example, most people replace it where the customers see it, but yet their employees are in the back and they don't spend the money to replace it there. And as you know, carbon doesn't care whether the customer sees it or not.
Exactly.
And honestly, in that market, refrigeration is another aging infrastructure. We'll often replace and fix and maintain refrigeration units. And we're hitting, near 30% energy reduction on all this. And then we put in software and metering at every point, because managing and monitoring this is crucial. These things get out of whack. I don't care if it's a new unit or not. We see about a 20 to 30% basically goes off the rails over a 10-year period. And it's up to us to make sure that we keep an eye on that. You could either have a component that goes bad, and you got to be ahead of all that. Otherwise, energy gets wasted. We make our money, Joe, by making sure we hit that high percent. If we don't hit that high percent, we don't make money. I made sure we motivated Budderfly to care about the outcome, and we're the last one to get picked, which is the way I think it should be, after investing in all these assets that the customer gets the benefit of. So I don't know if I've explained that well, but I wanted to give you a view of it.
No, absolutely. So a two-part follow-up question on that. So when the infrastructure gets replaced, is that a partner mostly doing it, or is it your team? And then part two of that question is, okay, now that infrastructure is in place and it needs to be monitored and managed long term, mostly remotely, I would think, over some sort of IoT system. Is that you doing that, or can partners do that? And so where do partners fit in, both on the sale and the deployment, and then the long term management?
So Joe, we've gotten big quick, but as big as we are, we operate in 50 states. And this year, we'll probably add near 2,500 new locations. And if you do the quick math, at an average of 2 units, it's probably as much as 3,000 to 4,000 brand new HVAC units. And I can't tell you how many lights that is. We've decided to partner with a number of manufacturers, Carrier being a very big one, who's been a great partner, and Lennox as an example. And then on the installation side, we have about 30 installation partners all over the country. Ranges anywhere from a national one to a lot of regional ones. We cover every single state. We do insource a little bit, but we outsource the majority of what we do. Now we carry, but we're responsible. I want to be responsible.
Yeah.
I want to do a really good job in making sure that we optimize the outcome. And in doing so, you've got to make sure you create quality relationships, you train people, you certify them. Now we buy most of our stuff direct because we buy such volume. We also want to make sure we get good economic outcomes for both the customer and us. So we're probably up to about 270 people now, of which, that's a mix between our operations people, our project management people that work with these partners to do a great job for the customer. But this week, we're probably doing 20, 30 major HVAC rollouts where cranes are coming in and putting new units on. We've got lighting going on. We're putting metering in on panels. We have a lot going on, Joe, and all for the benefit of the world.
Fantastic. So that the partners that you have in your ecosystem so far, is it a sort of a one-time commission that they can earn on this project, or is it a recurring revenue model where they may get involved in the subscription service and or the ongoing management of the deployment?
Let me answer in two ways. If you're an installation partner, you just got a big increase in business from us.
Okay.
Because we essentially pay them. And of course, we get very good at repeatability. So we end up with a standard rate that we try to achieve within a scope. And obviously, if it goes out of scope, we want to pay them more. So we're a growth engine for all of our partners on that side. We're a growth engine for Carrier. You know, we've probably already ordered over coming close to 5,000 units. And, you know, we're just getting started. So this is going to be an ongoing thing for us. The one thing that hasn't hit, it's, you know, I'll be constructively critical, if you don't mind, is the world for the last 20 years has used a lot of ESCO type models, the older models. And I find those models to be quite inefficient. And I would like to partner with more companies to enable our simplistic model and enable those partners through what you just said. And we do have we have referral partners where they get paid a piece of the revenue. We have some partners that will actually do some sales cycles for us, but we're growing that going into next year. And we're going to use that to get into extra segments, new segments, colleges, universities, municipalities, healthcare, of which we have some, but we want to do more.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Hey, listen, what you're explaining to me makes sense to me. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I covered, you know, value-added resellers and IT resellers in the 1990s. And by about 2005 or so, I started seeing that switch to managed services and recurring revenue. God, back then, only 5% of resellers were really getting into managed services. Fast forward to 2023 here, the vast majority of VARs are now MSPs. I think we'll see some similar trends in the HVAC market where more and more of these companies get involved in subscription services and engage with you on a longer term journey. And speaking of that longer term journey, you and I are speaking, I'm checking the date here. We're speaking October 12th, 2023. What do you see as sort of your remaining priorities for the rest of this year?
We're in a huge catch up right now. We did a major private equity deal last July, as you may or know, and that gave us a tremendous amount of capital to apply. But given the long supply chain issues, we caught up on that. So we're in a massive installation throughout the whole country. It's really exciting. And we've both trained our internal resources, brought new resources on. We're really hitting stride on scale, Joe. You know, we're growing at about 100% a year top line. And we're installing probably more energy efficiency type equipment and components and software, I think, than any company in the country at this point. So for me right now, it's about scale. And we're going to keep growing. I'll tell you right now, our model is being accepted by the market in a way that I've never seen before. We've increased our sales organization by 5x in marketing over the last 12 months. Our priority right now is hit stride between now and the end of the year, while we double the business again next year. And I think we've beaten every quarter in the last 7 quarters, literally.
Oh, awesome. So growing at that pace with all these deployments going on, again, I'll use an IT analogy. The resellers and the VARs will put in all this IT equipment, but then many of them will either build their own network operating center, or they'll partner to get a network operations center so that someone can monitor all that infrastructure going forward. Are you building out what is the equivalent of a network operations center to monitor all this for the end customers?
We are. And it's actually at a critical mass. I'll give you an example. Right now, we're driving near 2 billion data records per day.
Wow. Okay.
Now, think about us as a cloud-connected model. We've got a tremendous amount of software that operates all the way from the billing, but also to the connectivity to all this equipment. And we've got a lot of IoT devices within. So at 2 billion records a day, we're delving big time into artificial intelligence right now, because imagine
Hmm.
all that data and the types of things that it can share with us, which will make that network operating center a lot more effective in the long run. Because I don't want that thing to get to 500 people. I'm okay
Right.
with it getting to 200 people, if you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
be able to leverage off that data model. So we're putting an awful lot on the tech side. You know, we're of our 270 people, we're probably near about 40 or close to 50 on the tech side, both hardware and software tech side. Very, very
Got it.
dedicated to that for obvious reasons, because I want to be able to scale to, 100,000, 200,000 locations.
Right, right. Now, you know what? One thing I didn't ask is you about a little bit more about you. So, are you someone who's been in and around sort of building energy management and sustainability and the shift towards carbon reduction for decades, or are you more of a someone who is an outsider looking in, saying this market needs change? I'm going to get in and be that change.
So I'm the latter.
Hmm.
I'm a three-time. This is my third, few more in between, but call it third big entrepreneurial journey. I started my first when I was 24. I did that for about 16 years. My second, I did a 16 years, and now I'm on about year 7 here.
Okay.
Uh, I'm a big believer when you find an area that you could create a better model
Hmm.
and use technology to enable that model, as Joe, you've probably seen in your last life, and even
Yeah.
change the rules of the game economically for the benefit of the customer and the world. I prefer not coming from the space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Well,
always say for our teams, I say that's our biggest advantage. So I read a lot. And I tell you, I was reading and I continue to read my butt off. I've learned an awful lot. I probably am now from the energy space after 7 years, right, officially.
right.
But I think we came in with a fresh set of eyes, and it's obviously working. The market, the energy space to me has a lot of old traditions that are hard to break.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I love that, right? I love being able
Yeah.
to go in and disrupt it to some degree. So it's probably, I think me and again, the whole Budderfly team, it's why a lot of people like working here, is we're fairly disruptive, but practical. We're not reckless
Right.
about it. And we also, I like bringing things to market fairly quickly. So we try
Hmm.
a lot of things. And listen, we fail once in a while. I'm not afraid of that. I actually promote it within the business
Yeah.
itself. A great time to be at Budderfly. The morale and the excitement around what we're doing, and we're saving the world, Joe. I mean,
Yeah.
we're doing our part. We're applying a ton of capital here to really what should be a better outcome for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, you just described one of the reasons I love covering the industry is certainly emerging technologies, but then you intersect that with some sort of disruption on an economic playing field. You take those things together, and it's a big bang moment of opportunity, both for you as well as for your customers and partners. So that's why I love industries such as this. Technology for the sake of technology, who cares? But if you can change the economics the way you're describing, that interests me.
Oh, Joe, I agree. I'm going to give it. I have to give you an example. It drives me a little nuts. I get approached 2, 3 times a week on these business intelligence, software, energy
Mhm.
efficiency plays, and I'll tell you my opinion on that is while there's some benefit to it, the infrastructure has aged so poorly in most of these markets. I don't need our artificial intelligence to tell me that I got an 18-year-old bunch of things running my HVAC
Right,
environment. I don't
right,
care what you do to that thing. You need a new car.
right, right.
And when you look at the car and its miles per gallon or the fact, and I'm all EV now, you've got to
Right.
make a shift to EV. I'm sorry. By the way, business intelligence at that point has value. Don't get me wrong, but it's a combination of both. And I think everybody's trying to avoid the elephant in the room, and that we just
Yeah.
have an aging infrastructure that, frankly, a good portion of it needs to be replaced with brand new, really high efficiency type things that are out there. So it's a combination of both. And a lot of the
Yep.
software companies haven't been in the hard goods market enough to be able to solve that problem.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me of, and I'll date myself. I was actually in high school or college at the time, but I came in right at sort of the end of the mini computer. I came into the industry covering it, and the deck vacs and all that, and all
Oh, yeah.
that legacy. Yeah, the legacy hardware. If you were to apply business intelligence to that, who cares? What you really need is a modern IT infrastructure with high speed internet, switched
Right.
Ethernet PCs, TCP/IP, and now you have the infrastructure where you can, to your point, apply artificial intelligence to it and really make a difference. I mean, very similar to what you're up to, I think.
You're totally, and listen, I could date myself as well. Will have to do this offline a little bit. We're testing, and we're almost done. We're testing ultra high performance HVAC architectures right now. First of all, the fact that Budderfly is in the lead on testing this is astounding to me. And it's a heat pump architecture, energy recovery ventilators, and I can get into technical things. More importantly, is we're seeing about a 70% reduction. 70.
Wow. Yeah.
On an HVAC environment. And we're able to do that with less than half the tonnage. And it's working. And again, I'm asking myself, first of all, the heat pump trend is real. And it needs to happen. It absolutely needs to happen, no doubt about that. But the United States is behind the curve. You know, Europe's been ahead for a long time. But, you know, why, as a company that's been around 7 years, you know, created by people that didn't come from the space originally, in the lead on these new architectures? You would just generally think. So anyway, it's exciting time, a lot of room for innovation in the market, and awful lot of companies obviously chasing this. But again, an industry that has a lot of old traditions that are hard to break.
Yep. You told me a little bit about your 2023 remaining priorities. Without giving away any company secrets, 2024, any sort of longer term things on the whiteboard that you're thinking about?
Yeah, and I don't mind talking about it. I think there's an awful lot of stress in the world. The renewable replace stress, which is putting a lot of stress on the wires, the grid, and the power plant model, and then nuclear, where does it play? But everybody's going after the current architectural thing. They're saying, I got to stuff more through a bunch of wires that already exist. I'm beginning to think, and our model enables us to do this, is that we enable the control of the facility. And we're not afraid to invest in that. So as fuel cells become more readily available, and as we have more flexibility to put renewables in a more distributed sense, I'd like to create more power production down closer to the customer.
Right.
And I'd like to do that with a storage model that may not put stress on the grid to the point where we pull stress off the grid. And I'm not sure anybody is thinking about that distributed strategy. You know, there's virtual power plant discussions going on, which is really playing with demand to some degree. But I'd like to change the general power production and bring it down to a more distributed sense than the market is doing right now. Now, in our model, we have the ability, we have the will, the capability, the capital, and the control to be able to pull that off. So you'll see next year that we're going to do some NetZero sites, and we just create them.
Okay.
At the location level, and we're going to do it in a way that pulls some stress off the grid to help the capacity they need to enable renewables. It drives me crazy that if you do a big solar farm, you can wait 4 years for interconnection right now.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, right? So we're going to go after this problem a little differently than everybody else has. And again, we'll be doing testing on that into next year while we're driving 30% reduction in all of our customers. But, you know, you do the quick math, we get to, I think we're going to get to 40, 50% in our customers. If we create renewables for another 30, I'm only about, 30% away from net zero.
Got it. Excellent. Well, it is exciting because you're able to back up the conversation with real math. So I appreciate that. Hey, one final question for you. You've covered a lot of areas for us here. For a partner or customer who wants to get some more information, is there a particular URL or landing page to check out?
Sure. Our website, a friendly website, Budderfly with 2 Ds. 2 Ds as in dog. Okay. We'll talk about that another day of why, but it's simple. Budderfly.com, pronounced like the one with T's, and go right to our contact page. And please, welcome you to come chat with us. We can go change the market together because it needs change, and it's a great opportunity for us and our partners to go after a great growth opportunity right now.
Fantastic. Well, Al, thank you for your time. And also thank you to your communications team that was kind enough to put me in touch with you. I appreciate it.
Joe, thank you. Enjoyed the conversation. Look forward to staying in touch.